Hi, I'm Brian Hibbs, owner of Comics Experience in San Francisco, and I'd like to welcome you to a very special episode of the Comics Experience Graphic Novel Club. This week, we have the honor of interviewing AI WEIWEI about his book here, ZODIAC. The Comics Experience Graphic Novel Club, we pick a brand new book every single month. The whole staff votes on it. It's what we think is the best comic that comes out at any given month. Each one of them comes with a special signed bookplate. Here's the one for AI WEIWEI. And we also do these interviews with the creators. If you're interested in comics, in art, this is a great program, and we'd love it if you could join us. There's a URL down at the bottom of the screen, so click it through and join the club. Otherwise, enjoy the interview. I want to welcome everyone to a very special episode of the Graphic Novel of the Month Club. We've got a really fantastic book this month. It's very thoughtful. It's a beautiful memoir, and we're very lucky to be joined here by international activist and artist AI WEIWEI. Hello, AI. How are you? Hi, WEIWEI. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. I'm really nervous.
That's fine. You know, it's just, you can call me I or WEIWEI. Doesn't matter.
Very good. I will call you WEIWEI is what I will do. I really thought that this was a fantastic piece of comic book making. I really enjoyed it tremendously. And so the first question always is, why comics? Of all the ways that you can express yourself, what appealed to you about doing this as a comic?
Well, I think the comic come from a very early experience. When you see someone like my father who can use just a pen and a piece of white paper to start to make a drawing. And, you know, those simple lines, it's almost like a poetic image, because you see the reality can be abstract into just a simple line, and the line tells so much. So I started to realize when I was very young to see this kind of miracle happens, because my father studied art in Paris in the early 1930s. And so when he started doing those things, he was being seen as the public enemy, exiled in most remote province, Xinjiang. And in this Gobi Desert, we are living under a dugout, you know, basically very, very extreme conditions. So he was forced to as someone to clean the public toilets for the villagers. And then you know, I don't know what it really did, but I see him and can make a drawing like that, which nobody can achieve. So that surprises me, leaving me a very strong impression. And also at that time, there's not so much other media besides we call it a little boys book or little children's book, which is maybe 1/4 of the size of A4 paper, or what? Yeah, and on those little drawing books, you can see revolutionary stories, or some stories reflects this kind of revolutionary spirit. So, but the drawings are made by professionals, and the story always catches children's attention. You know, they don't understand the meaning, or they may not even care about the meaning of the propaganda, but they really like the drawing. I'm one of them, just reading those kind of materials when we growing up. There's no other sense to look at this. Of course, there's not even television or films, but those books, almost every household would have it. So we always had this kind of habit to look at the pages, and which I always think is very interesting. And it always structure your imagination.
Yeah. The propaganda comics that you were reading, how did you get them? Were they distributed by the government, or were these things that were for sale?
In China, there's one distributor called the New China. New China. This is the name called the New China. Xinhua She or People's Association. So, everything are distributed by the government. There's no single print, not even a single word not distributed by the government.
Interesting. And one of the things you talk about in the book a couple of times is about how when the government makes art, it's very difficult for it to be valid art, because the government's interests are very different than the interests of art. Was this a thing that you perceived when you were young, or did you just take it for granted what you were seeing in these comics?
Well, there's no other publications. That's the only thing has been distributed to people can spend a few cents to buy a book, and there's no way even to judge it.
Yeah. You're the very first panel of Zodiac. It starts with your father saying, "Don't read." Is that partly a reaction to the propaganda that you were being given?
No, nothing to do with those propagandas. Actually, the book is, because I talk about my early relations with this kind of drawings, and it's just one way of expression to make drawings and to illustrate and to create some narratives and to tell a story.
When did you first encounter comics that were not propaganda?
I would say all comics are propaganda. I never, I would say, propaganda a different way. Even you look at the children's book, you see, how the parents want to educate the children. And mostly you say it's kind of propaganda.
Yeah. Do you think that a memoir though is inherently propaganda? Because it strikes me that
I will not directly refers to that. I would say if a book writing or drawing or whatever the book is really has a content, and that reflects authors or someone's idea.
One of the things that struck me is that there's almost no native Chinese comics that have made it into the United States. Very, very, very few. The main ones that have been martial arts comics from Hong Kong. And I look at the same time at Japanese manga, Korean manga, where those comics are out there widely and are actually changing American culture as people read the points of view of those Asian countries. Do you think that there's a mistake from the Chinese publications to not make the material wider available to the rest of the world so that those points of view can be communicated?
I would say in the world, in terms of those kind of publications, are really divided by the culture and by the political situation. And there are many wonderful books, even the propaganda books with fantastic illustrations, but they have a very different ideology or sense about right or wrong, or so it can't be popular in the West because it's just simply not same kind of stories, or people would feel disconnected to certain ideology or emotions.
But I would say the same thing is certainly true with Japanese culture, and yet because of the popularity of manga in the United States, I can see that Japanese manga is changing how pop culture comes across in the United States and changing what American audiences think about things. It just seems like I don't want to say a missed opportunity, right? Because government propaganda is not an opportunity, but did what I say there make any sense at all, or am I babbling?
Well, I never read any Japanese manga myself. I see a lot of children make drawings looks like the manga type of drawings. The kind of little hero with a big eye shining or something. But for me, it's very much like a Mickey Mouse. It's very stylish, and I don't know. It's why I don't know why it catches so many young people's imagination. I have no idea.
Yeah.
That's why I think all arts are propaganda. If you become a popular, it reflects certain kind of meaning there.
Sure. Let me try to phrase it maybe in a slightly different way. One of the things that I liked so much about ZODIAC was, well, the structure of the book, that you structured it around the Chinese zodiac, and then you've used each of those 12 parts of the zodiac to not only illustrate a part of your life, but to illustrate what's going on politically. Like you did something with a very multi-phased manner. Now, I think that this probably will teach more people about Chinese culture than something that's more staid. I think more people will read this than say your prose memoir to get things about important parts of Chinese culture in terms of familial relationships, in terms of how you feel about your ancestors, or how you feel about old objects, right? Like those are different cultural things that I've learned about from reading this book that I don't know that I would have learned about in a prose book. So from that point of view, it seems to me that it would be better if China let more of the culture get out to the other countries.
Well, those kind of culture, it's we talk about a immigrant. This book, I would say it's not a forest, but more like a bushes. You have all kinds of things come out from bushes, mushrooms, grass, or flowers, or bees. You never know what you get. It's quite kind of wild growing situation, but that's environment. But in authoritarian state, they never really allowed this kind of massive nature supporting system. So after this kind of heavy censorship, you want to have one type of language and forms, which is a pity because it limits people's imagination, and it just not offering enough nutrition to the people growing up, who grows, and that happens in a sectarian state, but also happens in the West. We see our West, always promote individualism and freedom, and we call it a democratic society. But if you look at the children's book, it's yes, of course, there's a lot of good ones, but still, very often you see very banal type of, stereotype of books, which doesn't really offers, cannot really give enough thinking or questioning of the condition of the day.
Sure. No, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of that is that publishers are far more interested or worried about capitalistic and commercial values. In other words, they want to be able to sell a book that they're making money off of rather than sell a book that is expressing, a human emotion in the right way. What I will say is that in the medium of comics, I think that Western children comics are actually really fantastic these days. That the most popular things tend to be like Raina Telgemeier, who does memoir like this. It's not, it's not identical, and it's aimed at a kid's audience rather than an adult audience, but that is actually expressing things that are real, and kids really, really, really are attracted to that. I have a store full of comics here, and we sell comics to children, and the ones they want, what the kids want, is not the propagandist ones, as you would say, but the more human and real ones, the ones that make an actual connection, the ones that show them different cultures, that show them different ways of thinking, that expand their mind. And I'm really encouraged by the fact that kids can take things that way.
Well, it's not easy to make a book. If you think a book is some kind of art form or literature or poetry, you need an author. And, this author is very important. Very often we see the book are made poor for children because the author misunderstands the children's ability to have maybe even higher level, higher ability than the adults. So we often trying to prejudge, what is good for the children, and that is some kind of prediction. I think it's almost like a censorship. It's a different way to say what children should read, which I think is a problem.
Yeah, I guess the point that I was trying to make is that it at least in my experience in San Francisco, right, that children want to be challenged. Children don't want what they see all the time, and I always feel encouraged by that. I always feel that, as Martin Luther King says, that the arc of history and ultimately bends towards the good. And I think a lot of that is children, and children seeing what the world is and how it can be. So
yeah, I come back to the how the world is and on the how the imagination of the riches, and that very much dominated by the adults and under the market, under the capitalism, and trying to attract children, just like use candies or use some kind of fast food. This is reality. That's the reality. That's why I think in general, those books are poor. I'm sure there's great ones. Please send me 2 copies. What do you think is really good?
sure, I can do that. Yeah, no, absolutely, I can do that. So let's talk a little bit about the creation and execution of Zodiac. One of the things I noticed when I was doing a little research on this was that there's kind of a multimedia aspect to Zodiac. That you did a series of statues, you did a series of Lego paintings. You've done the graphic novel. Maybe there's more things that I'm not aware of. What was your thinking in doing it as a multimedia kind of thing, particularly when they're not explicitly connected to one another?
As artists, you're just a living creature. I never really planned anything. I only focus on what I want to do on the next. So I first did the zodiacs because they relate to. I never really believed in zodiacs, or like most Chinese, they are more feel. Relate to it. I'm lived like outsider, but once I realized this kind of zodiac sculptures was looted by British and French soldiers in the about 250 years ago, and so that is an old story. But every Chinese under government using that as a patriotic type of education to say, okay, that belong to us, but now they looted it, then they sell it in the auction house. And to buy it back, it's almost like to some kind of revenge, which is, I think, is ridiculous, because in the Qing Dynasty, the palace looted is not even Han people, but rather someone from outside. We call the Manchu people who conquered Chinese kingdom, and it's an invader, or so. So I think that is interesting, because we always rewrite the history. But these zodiacs relate to every Chinese, because Chinese people, they would never ask how old are you. They would ask what sign is your zodiac sign. So, I like that. I think, you have to jump 12 years. You either 12 or 24 or 36. And which, 48 or 60, you only have a few, like you can imagine that, and you can compare to the other people's zodiac sign. A lot of stories relate to this 12 animals. So I think that's pretty interesting to create something which everybody can feel they can somehow relate to. And so that's the first public sculpture I ever did. And it's being shown in the palace, in front of the Palace Hotel, from Central Park. And the mayor, Bloomberg, gave an opening talk, because that time I was in secret detention, so I couldn't attend it. So that gradually, that story become classic and modern and political, and also relate to history and social discussions. And gradually I start to build it with that. Later I build it with Legos, which is a new media I liked because it's different from painting. So mine says Lego paintings, which is completely construction, and every Lego piece are digital and pixels. So it more relate to computers than relate to anything else. So that's how this gradually developed. And the stories, basically, the stories are all my personal stories, or the stories related to China's past and culture, which is can be very rich. Sometimes can be even looks surreal or even some unbelievable. But basically, it's by two other authors. So one is Gianluca, and another is Electra, and they are couples, and they have been following me, my activities. They're activists and a very good writer and illustrator. So they have been doing a lot of portraits of me before they got involved with this ZODIAC project. So of course we share stories, and they know me so well, and they structure it together with the concept of ZODIACs and my memo. So that's how it comes out.
So your level of direct involvement here, other than living this life, right? Obviously, this is your story. You live this life. But did you so you didn't write a script for this? You didn't lay it out. It's Gianluca and ELETTRA who did that. Is that correct?
Basically, it's they did all the labor works, but the quotes, the ideas, and the stories, and the images, and also the concepts, I work on that with them. And of course, I always have to communicate with them. And also I did the last editing because there could be a lot of things need to be corrected. Yeah. The most, all the drawings is by Gianluca, and I did the cover. And of course, I think he did a cover, strong cover, and yeah.
So I'm one of the reasons I ask this is because it's really a deft job of taking each of the signs of the zodiac and applying it to an individual story in your life, and that seems to me the kind of thing that only you can really do, rather than having someone from the outside go, oh, I think this part of your life fits in with this zodiac. I guess what I'm asking is the structure of putting it together, of breaking it into 12 chapters, and in chapter 1 it's going to be this, and in chapter 2 it's going to be that. How much active input did you have into that process?
Well, mostly they are doing that, but I would give them some stories which relate to, because I know Chinese mythology and the stories, so I would lead them into different parts, different animals. But they did the sewing together, to pack it together.
Yeah. You work quite often with many other people doing work. Zodiac here, or the sunflower seeds, where you have 1,600 artisans hand painting the porcelain. Alcatraz is a great example where you weren't even in the space. You were in China at the time, and other people have to make it. I'm really curious about the nature of you as the artist versus individual artisans?
Well, I'm working in every level. I'm working as someone conceptually, very precisely to work with whoever work with me. And I come to the very final measurement or lines or drawings. I'm an architect. I don't build the house myself, but I come to every every corner, every how high the door should be, and it's all the details. And also, I'm a film director. I don't very often. Sometimes I use camera. Most time there's camera person or another dozen directors working with me when we did the human flow. So it's we are living in industrial society. I don't have the liberty to spend my time just working on pages after pages because I do maybe 20 things at the same time. But I'm very precisely, very I would say very picky on my aesthetic judgment, and also people work with me. They know this is the most crucial to make a work become a book or work. So I never accept a work which is not mine, but existing, because I'm not enjoying that. The work I would call as my work only because I would think they reflect my kind of judgment or control of it.
Absolutely. I'm talking to the Italians tomorrow about the making of the comics, so I'll get their perspective on this as well. But what was the depth of the editing process that you did to make the final book? How many changes did you ask for, I guess, is part of what I'm asking.
Well, if you come to the changes, that means already too late. The are structured already in what years, so we have to go through the process. But the final is only about right or wrong, or the way to basically, I like Gianluca's drawing. I think his language, of course, we discuss the style. He can draw different ways. But I wanted the story not like, kind of very expressionist or too, but a very, how do you say, very like the book I read while I was young, simple lines, very almost plain, but to let the narrative comes out. So that's how I can accept this style. Otherwise, it's other styles I may not fit into my judgment. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a very photorealistic nature to the art here, and in fact, in many places, I could see that it was literally a photograph that he had redrawn or however he had done. Did you suggest to him particular images to use, or was that just their call?
Never. Yeah. Once we come to collaboration in China, we have an old saying: if you work with somebody, you have to trust it. If you have a little not trust it, do not work with it. So why you need that kind of struggle? So I like his drawing. I trust him. Of course, I would give him some suggestions. I would introduce certain styles to him to show the book I liked, from the earlier time. This wonderful, how do you say, illustrator from China. I introduced to him. And actually in the ZODIAC book, on the call section, he basically used that image, this farmer with a cow and this cat in front of this cow. So that image basically it's this illustrator's image, and we trying to pay respect to the past. Doesn't matter it was a revolutionary story, but a lot of beautiful revolutionary stories, heroic stories, and the human stories. So there's I'm very happy he likes that person's drawings so much, and we both think we cannot draw as good as this guy. It's not possible because this guy he just so good. His name is He Youzhi. Actually we introduced in the book on the call chapter.
Yeah, I remember that. Do you you say that so much of what you do is conceptual? How much actual execution of art do you do in on a daily basis, I suppose?
You mean use my hands?
Yeah, as opposed to your brain. Yeah.
Everything I did is use my brain, and every work I did is use my brain. But why I don't do painting? I don't want to dirty my hands. Why I do Lego? Anybody can structure it. I like this kind of detachment with the work, and I don't like this kind of personal flavoring there. This kind of habit. Actually, I a little bit hate the one who just trying to show his own accent or habit. So I just try to make it simple.
Interesting. It's fascinating because most of what I value as a person who sells books is that individual craft, the individual thing that someone brings to a work to make it their own work. What's it that they say, that there's only 7 stories? Maybe it's a dozen, I don't know, but how you execute that thing is, to me at least, one of the most fascinating parts of the creation of art. But I very much appreciate that your view is different.
Yes, I'm not only doing differently, and I try to make all my works different from each other. I do porcelains, I do carpentry, I do stone carving, I do iron casting, I do films, and the comic books, and I try to give up the things I already familiar with. I don't like this kind of one artist just does the same thing for the whole generation or even 3 generations doing the same kind of thing. For me, that is lacking of challenge and imagination. And it's that's what I disassociate myself with.
Do you think that there's any value though in the mastery of a craft, in terms of the ability to draw, right? Like the first time you draw a cat, right, it looks sort of like a vaguely cat-like subject, and then the 10th time it looks more like a cat, and then the 100th time you draw a cat, then it becomes more realistic and more true. As you practice more and more and more, you get better at executing the vision. Do you see a value in that, or?
I don't think so. I think if you look at the children's drawing, they often make great drawings than the so-called the educated people. They're very innocent. They just know how to draw, and they are very very brave because they don't know what should stop them. So you should always learn from the children. It can be very sophisticated.
Oh, I agree with that absolutely. I I wonder though that in a capitalistic society where most people don't have the freedom to create art in anything other than their spare time. In other words, because you can't commercialize your art, it means that there's less art being produced. Do you follow what I'm suggesting there? Did that make sense? I always wonder when I ask these questions if they make any sense.
Well, there's many levels if we have to talk about, but I think mostly it's about the values, how we judge. There's social values, there's so-called artistic values, and there's also human values and political values. Very often, those are not the same, not on the same level, but very often the mainstream are dominated by a single value that is dangerous for not just the poor, but dangerous for the society.
Yeah, I guess what I'm asking is that given the nature in a capitalistic society where you don't have free time to make art, that you have to work to pay for your rent, to pay for your food, to pay for your family, and that becomes the main value that people take from their lives, right? Or not that they take, but that they have to apply in order to survive. They don't get to make art. That it's not a freedom that most people have to make art.
Well, the question is, you think you have the freedom, but still you cannot make art. Art is not because you think you have freedom. Very often, art is come from someone have to with a very restrained situation and a limited resource, and to have something come out from these kind of difficulties. That in literature, in poetry, and in very good art is always like that. So people often have a misunderstanding to say, okay, we have the freedom and we can create a great art, which I think is a lie. It's not true.
What is it that that makes art great? I know that's a really broad question. That's probably ridiculous.
It's a very solid question. The so-called art field, I feel is so-called great. It shows something impossible. It shows something we cannot predict. It comes from someone's experience, which it's not commonly you cannot commonly give a form. It's unique, and those are very essential. And but it's not about popularity. It's not about the book win some kind of awards or being put on publisher, bestseller. It's nothing to do with that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I guess I would maybe reframe my question in terms of who has the ability to make art, because it strikes me, and please tell me that I'm wrong about this, but that in your world, I don't mean you specifically, but in the fine art world, in the big project world, that it's only people who have access to resources who are able to make that kind of art. I guess part of the thing I might ask is sort of the difference between the accessibility of a comic, where this is a very inexpensive object that anyone can buy, versus art that's in museums, for example, where to go to a museum, just to visit a museum one time, costs more than this book does at many, many museums. Is there? What do you think about that? I guess is just sort of the accessibility of art versus the commerce part of art.
First, I think when we talk about value, we talk about the people's judgment on how they think is valuable. So I think through education or through some kind of mainstream propaganda or the capitalism, that we always value what sells high is more valuable. It's which I think is this is really not just questionable, but wrong. A great poetry can never really sell. And we all remember those great writers. But why artwork have to sell like sky high? But still, we're living in a very twisted, strange society. And a little comic book can be very meaningful. It can be very a great piece of work to be remembered, but maybe just not popular. So yeah, it's hard to use this kind of price to judge any work.
Sure, no, absolutely. I just I always wonder about people who get to make art, and get to make is a strange statement. But people who go to school, for example, right? To go to school to do art, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars in America, at least. And so then it strikes me that the art that they produce is often a reflection of that capitalistic investment, if you see what I mean, right? That they're maybe talking less about individual points of view than something that they think they can make money back so they can pay student loans back.
Sure. This is capitalism is a huge machine. It will crash any other kind of forms. So once you're into that process, very often you can see what kind of product you will become.
Yeah. It's tricky. As a person who sells art, I struggle with it all the time because I see so many cartoonists who don't make any money, and they're struggling so hard to be able to express themselves, and the opportunities just aren't there for them, and it's the one thing I love being in a capitalistic society, but I also despise the fact that people don't get all the opportunities to express themselves that they want because they can't afford to.
Not only they cannot afford to, that is under how do you call it, underestimate. It's really they're not even allowed to. Many opinions you just simply cannot even express in today's situation. You must know it, so.
Yeah, it's very true. I have a question about your personal life in terms of your father was labeled a dissident. Your whole family was exiled into the desert and living in a hole in the ground. And yet 10 years later, you were able to travel to America and go to art school. How were you able to achieve those things?
I did not achieve anything. Actually, only what I have achieved is I made the decision I have to leave China. And, if any direction, doesn't matter, it can be India or Russia or Korea or wherever I can across the border, I would leave. And so, my not education, but my early experience told me that it's dangerous for me to stay, because I can sense I'm a person with this kind of rebelling spirit. That's what is the worst disease if you have that in China. So I will not say accident, but I had a girlfriend whose family immigrants to United States before 1949, and then I followed her help, her to went to Philadelphia, then Berkeley, then New York City. And I come from China, and it's very hard to even survive in the United States as a foreign student doesn't really speak words of English. So I just hanging around there and pays my rent and doesn't do anything almost. I call myself as artist. So that's gradually, I just trying to survive. It's not, I'm not so interested in, American dream or whatever, because it's such a contradiction to, the communist, the early education. Even I don't like that education, still I'm not very convinced about American dream. I would say that. So after 12 years, I went back to China, become a foreigner again. China totally changed. It become a very capitalistic society, but politically still communist. So it make me very uncomfortable because it's a double uncomfortable. And, this authoritarian society with this capitalism ideology. So I, again, in my nation, I become a misfit again. So I did some architecture works, which can earn some money, and other works, publishing underground books or organize some kind of art shows to trying to promote local culture. And until one day I be recognized by West, basically, as artists giving me shows. So yeah, that's the story, to make it simple. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it and being recognized by the West is that part of why you were able to survive in China during those 12 years, because you couldn't just be disappeared, because people were looking for you and paying attention to you? Is that a fair statement, or am I off somewhere there?
I always think I was identified by Chinese authority and also recognized by the West, both on wrong reasons. So but you have to survive and you have to work with the given condition. So political situation, East or West or China or United States, so it's almost, for me, it's all like a ready-made. So I have to, as an individual, I have to deal with it.
I understand. How does your mother feel about you as an artist in relationship to your father? I mean, you both ended up being dissidents. Did that make her scared? Did that make her proud? I'm curious.
My father was when I growing up, he was being seen as enemy of the state, and later he got rehabilitated and he become a hero, like a national patriotic poet. The national patriotic is still on the highest level. And myself to become a dissident, how do you say, dissident. My mother never have any kind of. She never even recognized my work as art. She would laugh to see what I did can be called art. And I totally agree with her. I think what I did is what I did. I don't even care I'm doing art or not. Till today, I don't really care. So I think there's much bigger mission than just being an artist. And so that's how the situation is.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I am almost done here. I'm almost out of time, but let me ask you two more big questions. The first thing I'd like to ask you about is AI and the way that AI has the ability to potentially democratize art, but also to take away from the ability of artists to make a living doing it, right? Because the capitalist imperative is to get work done as cheap as possible. And if you can just speak a couple of words into a computer and have it spit out some art, then what do you need artists for? Yeah. Does that concern you for the future of creativity in the world, or are you more optimistic about the future and the potential of AI?
Sorry, my name is also AI, but
I know, I know.
Yeah, but I am not concerned at all. I think what AI can do is just exactly what art cannot do, and what AI cannot do is exactly what art should do. So of course, AI would make a lot of people losing their jobs or make their skills seems not even relevant anymore. But that's exactly the AI did a good thing, because it challenges our humanity and our human spirit, which AI can never really achieve. And it is a challenge, but for many people. But for me, I don't think that that would affect my way.
Yeah, sure. Did you? I know you have a thing that's happening at Piccadilly Circus now, where you're asking questions, 81 questions of AI. Have you been surprised by any of the answers that you've gotten?
No, not at all. It's a very banal answer. It's just it's a tool. A tool cannot jump itself to create a machine. You have to use the hand and the human's mind to create anything very simple. So, but still, a great tool. A great tool can solve many problems. Can help you. The challenge you play chess game or Chinese Go game, and and it get complicated. Analyze in a second, which take a student maybe one semester to come out this kind of conclusion, or make many professors lost their job because most times they did is with just a human AI, but not. That only means we are very easy to share the information and knowledge. But the information and knowledge, even quickly be shared, still doesn't make a better society. We are still human. We are still have our own joys and our fears. And those things, AI doesn't have a will. It doesn't care. It's cold. It doesn't have a heart and a lung, and it just doesn't even. So it's no comparison. I don't see how. I can see many people are scared about it because it questions their ability of existence. But should not be the art.
Sure. I guess part of my concern would be that resources that could be given to actual human artists having actual human thoughts are instead being given over to computer thoughts, which is just, in a best case scenario, regurgitation, right? I don't think that AI is able to make the leap between one concept and another concept the way that a human can, and it's certainly not going to relate it to how we feel, how we live, what we need to succor our souls. But those resources being taken away, I think, are the danger. Because, in a capitalistic society, of course, the pendulum always is swinging back and forth, and it always ends up way too high at one point before it swings back to the middle again.
Well, when electricity being discovered, that's a fact everybody's life, but still, we still like to have darkness. We still like to have candles, and we still, appreciate the place, the area or corner with no electricity. So yeah, same thing. It's just different conditions.
That's kind of a beautiful answer, actually, and I really appreciate that. My last question before I move on to the audience questions here will be, one of the things I talk to a lot of comic book artists about is the blank page, about when they stare at a blank piece of paper, they have to start drawing lines, like how they start doing that. For a writer, it's often a blinking cursor on their computer screen. What's your blank page? Is it all in your head? Or are there tools that you use to bring your blank page to an actual concept?
Well, most often my blank page will remain blank.
Okay. And how so? How do you mean that?
And that means we call so-called human creativity. And if I look at it twice, very often it's really limited to our own, it's our own imaginations or human conditions. And very often it's not so necessary.
Okay, that makes sense. What I guess I'm trying to get to, how do you go from having a concept, for example, in Alcatraz, you have a space and you thought, oh, I'd use there's a little bit about it in here. Maybe I'll use the kites and dragons. How do you go from that to the actual execution of the idea, though?
You use some big words, execution of idea. It's so easy. It comes very handy, and since I never think of my idea even it's a good idea. It's just helped me to pass in some time, or to, yeah, it's true. It's helping me to, not just sitting on the chair all the time, but to actually put my hands on something, or help me to develop my curiosity in terms of how materials are being used. And very often it's about understanding the imperfection of this kind of process. So I would say nothing glamorous, but it's very often it's quite boring.
There's value in boredom, though.
Well,
I think
it may entertain others. We all need to be entertained, I guess. Also.
Yeah, So actually, that's a really good segue to the audience questions. I actually don't have a lot. Oh, I think people were actually anxious to try to ask you questions. I know I certainly was. So I really only have two different people who submitted questions. The first one's from Julie McNeil, who's also a comics artist herself. One of the questions that she asks is, and let me just kind of rephrase it. What are there any comics that you follow? Probably not, but I would more broadly ask: do you pay attention to pop culture at all, or is it not worth your time?
Of course, I pay attention to pop culture before it become a culture. So I'm on internet all the time, on Instagram, on Twitter. So I see the world shifting in front of me, all those facts, all those events, and all those, like a theater. So, but I don't pay much attention to pop culture, because once it's already become a culture, which it doesn't really have this kind of stimulating or kind of sharp feelings or emotions but I pay a lot of attention to reality.
Understood. Do you follow any comic artists at all? Do you?
Not at all. I never really look at it. I look at the covers because I have to pass in Berlin. I have to pass at least 5 bookshops. And in the window I will see some covers, but I kind of sense there's a different culture and always different styles, but very often in the so-called children's store, the styles are so similar because there's so many beautiful ways in the history, and in the medieval time or in the Song Dynasty or Yuan Dynasty, there are great paintings or drawings, and we lost the ability to still carry this very impressive human treasure to give to the children, to introduce to the children. But rather to have a quick, like 3 minutes, reading or something, just quickly before they to put them into the bed to sleep. I don't think that is. I don't think that's good.
Yeah. Have you ever given any thought to doing more things that are aimed specifically at children? Versus,
I like to take a challenge. Yes, actually, I might start thinking about if I do what kind of story and what kind of expression it should be. It's just to trying to give a different type of approach.
Yeah. No, I would love to see that, because I agree with a lot of your thoughts about the way that we teach children. And as I say, I find that children, because they're unformed yet, they're unfinished, are the most open to a variety of things. And that if you can catch them when they're young, if you can put ideas in their brain when they're young, those can grow into amazing things and in directions you would never have thought of.
I think so. I totally agree. I think to underestimate our human ability or intelligence or sensitivity when they are as a children is a mistake. Yeah. So very often we see a lot of guidelines to say, okay, children cannot see this, or this is not fit for children. I think that is really shows how scared those adults have no imagination and poor education in art. And
Yeah. In fact, I want to like to bring it back to this particularly. I want to say I thought of everyone in the book. I actually thought that your son Lau came off almost the best with his inquisitive questions about art, his interest in how the world worked, and I thought it really captured a child's sense of wonder very, very well.
Well, actually, law is much profound than I can imagine. This book doesn't really show his mental ability. I feel a little bit shy if he sees the book. I know what he would feel, and I think he may be angry of me. So,
Oh, well, I don't know. I thought, I mean, just the shadow of him on the wall, I thought that shadow was very impressive from what came across. So good job on you as a father and on his mother as well for raising a child who seems to be inquisitive and thoughtful and philosophical. Very, very good job there. Let's see. Julie has another question that I want to ask. There's actually two more that I want to ask from her. Many artists were mentioned in Zodiac, such as Pablo Neruda and Joseph Beuys. So I'm pronouncing it wrong, I'm sure. All of these had an influence on WEIWEI's ideas. Can WEIWEI recommend any Chinese women artists working today, or even in the past, that we should know about?
of course, there's a lot, but I'm not good in giving names. In art, I will not say not in the West, the women and men or color or race become so how do you say being talked like this, like oh you're vegetarian or well, we don't do that like that. Many people they don't eat meat. They like it, but they will never call them a vegetarian. It's not a problem, and it's you're good. You can be a great poet just by what they're writing. So, and I think that is to really to name those things. I think it shows some kind of social unbalanced problem. So
I understand. Mm-hmm. I understand. Yeah, I think it's. I haven't asked Julie why she asked this question, but I suspect it's because she herself is a woman making art and she's looking for inspiration. I suspect that the basis of that question.
Women great. Women has better sensitivity than men, because you have to give children and you care and your love is your job. So this is great. Not like a man, this can be trained very differently. So
yeah, no, very much so. The final question that I'm going to do from Julie, and I'm going to paraphrase this quite a bit. Let me tie it into what I thought of Zodiac itself. Again, I mentioned earlier that I thought that it very much showed me history, showed me a way of thinking, showed me things that I wouldn't have seen. And despite the government of China being authoritarian towards you, imprisoning you, beating you, disappearing people around you, it still comes across in reading this that you very much love China. At least the culture part of it, if not the actual authoritarian world that it exists in the real world. So her question was, the last page has you giving the fuck you sign, but do you miss China?
Well, I'm familiar with China. I would say my ancestors, they all rooted in China, and I speak Chinese language. If they interview in Chinese, I will be, much better on my side. So I'm in very uncomfortable condition as a foreigner or as some kind of one being exiled. But still, there's no complaint. That's life. That's a real life. So I would not say I love China, but at least I don't hate China. And I say China is a nation or race. People are trying to survive. And survive is a way. And maybe some of them think that is the right way, and the others, they don't even care, or they think that's wrong. It's always like that in every society.
Yeah. But you do have an affection for these things yourself. I mean, it comes across in the book, I think. Unless I'm reading it wrong. I mean, it's possible that I...
No, I will not. I think your judgment can be the final judgment. Every reader has their own judgment, and I never even give a thought about it. But I kind of agree with you.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. The last audience question I have is from Terry Hu. I thought this was a sweet question. What happened to the cats that you had at your studio in Beijing when the authorities demolished it? And do you have any cats anymore? We know that you love them.
There's one, authority destroyed 2 of my studios, but there's one still remains existing, and the cats are still active in I would call it my home studio, and being taken really good care of. And of course, some are old and passed away after, a longest stays there for about 22 years. So it's very long life, I think. And they all being loved. And we look at them, think they are a saint, they are creature, and we would not understand, but fully, highly respected. So, yeah. And they bring us many, many lessons. And, so it's wonderful.
Yeah. And do you currently still have cats? Do you keep them as...
Oh, yes. In Portugal, we have 7 cats. And
wow.
In London, we have 2 cats. So, yeah, cats, we don't take care of cats. Cats taking care of us, They are very independent.
Yeah, absolutely
wonderful.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Okay, and so to kind of wrap this up, as I said, I have a first question that's always the same. I have a last question that's always the same. This is a series of interviews with people who make art. I've been doing this for 9 years now. We've got some 300 different creators. They're all comic book people. But one of the things I hear very often from our viewers is that they want to make art. Particularly comics. They want to make comics, and they're afraid. They're either afraid of how it's going to be taken, or they don't think they're good enough, or they have imposter syndrome. They just don't know how they can make art. So what would be the recommendation to a young artist for how they can effectively get over themselves and to make art, to produce art? This can be something practical, or this could be something philosophical. But what might be your answer to that for someone who would like to make art and doesn't know?
Very often we think people ask the question, what would I do when doing art, or what I should do? I would say, if you're cats, you're a cat. If you're a donkey, you're a donkey. Just be yourself. And, a donkey cannot be a cat. A cat cannot be a dog. It's not possible. So just be yourself, and, then making some comic books is just a byproduct of being yourself, and it should always be good. So,
very good. That makes a lot of sense. the difference between cats and donkeys and humans is that we're self-aware of ourselves. And
yeah, we are too self-conscious, and we are also always think we are not good enough. We have to be someone else. So that kills people.
Well, very good. I want to really profoundly thank you for taking the time to talk to us today.
So I've just talked to you.
Yeah, and I really loved this. I hope that you continue to look at comics as an art form and perhaps produce something else in the future, because even though this was done in collaboration, this is really a work of pretty great sensitivity, I thought, and pretty great use of the medium of comics and how time works and things that other art forms don't do nearly as well as comics. So I just want to say thank you very much for this, and thank you for taking the time, and thank you for all the signed copies that you were able to provide for us as well, because I know you are a very busy man, and I appreciate this.
I love to do that. I love to have real communication, and also I really appreciate my two collaborators. They are giving the warmth and the temperature to the book, and I fully appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. As I say, I'm talking to them tomorrow, so we'll follow up then.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care. Thank you for watching the interview with AI WEIWEI. Please stick around, because we're about to interview the artist and the writer of the book, and that's going to give you a whole lot of really interesting perspective as well. So I'd like to welcome everybody back to the second half of our show here. The first part obviously was AI WEIWEI, and now we've got his co-creators of ZODIAC, fantastic book, right here with us. We have ELETTRA STAMBOULIS and GIANLUCA COSTANTINI. Italian is not my first language. Welcome. I'm so glad to see you guys.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you very much.
Yeah, this is really both a beautiful book and also a really incredibly structured book, I think. It is a great example of what comics can do. And so my first question is always the same. Let me ask you, why comics? What is it about comics that excites you, that thrills you, that fills you with passion, that makes you want to do them?
Okay, let's start with Gianluca. So, because he's the master and I'm the craft woman, so I'm just the last part of the work. So,
ok, sì, perché il fumetto? Perché ho sempre amato unire il disegno con la parola.
He always loved to unify the lines with the lines of the words.
E ho iniziato le mie ricerche proprio con la calligrafia araba, le miniature, perché univano proprio il disegno e la calligrafia nella stessa modo.
He started doing his research in comics, working on Arabic calligraphy, because he was very fascinated by the way in which the words in the traditional Arabic calligraphy get a shape of images, and so he started studying this part.
E anche perché da ragazzo avevo dei problemi a leggere e i fumetti americani mi hanno aiutato a imparare a leggere insieme al disegno.
And because he had problems with reading when he was a kid, when he was a teenager in particular, comics, and in particular American comics, helped him a lot to start reading and start to be feeling comfortable with the text.
E quindi mentre facevo le scuole d'arte da ragazzo, sono cresciuto facendo sia pittura ma contemporaneamente leggendo solo esclusivamente fumetti.
So he grew up studying art. He did all his high school and then School of Art after high school at university. And he was studying painting, but at the same time, his main readings was comic.
Interesting.
So this is his part. My part is different because I'm not a drawer. I cannot draw. I never thought about drawing, but I was always fascinated from comics. I grew up with Mafalda, Kino's character, and I grew up with the traditional alternative comics. In my family, they were very strong readers of this kind of comics, political one mainly. And then I met him, and we started doing exhibitions together. Our first important exhibition was with Joe Sacco. And I discovered then that I could be able to use my skills in writing doing comics, because I'm a lazy person and I like to write, but not too much.
I understand. I don't have a lot of awareness of the local Italian comics market. How much of the material that's being produced is native Italian versus things being brought in from America, but also from, say, Japan and France and places like that?
I can say that there is a huge material produced in Italy. Walt Disney has a special hub for Europe in Italy, and there is some particular part of this production that is made for European audience, and it is made in Italy from mainly Italian creators. And Italy, it's a place of drawers like Gianluca. And we can say also that, and I would like you to say something more about this, it is also the place that after France, of course, and Belgium, has a very strong tradition, so strong that the first course of comics officially done at university for people who want to study comics was born in Bologna, and Gianluca is teaching in Accademia di Belle Arti in Bologna.
Oh, nice. Oh, very interesting.
Sì, l'Accademia di Bologna è stata la prima grande accademia in Europa ad aprire un corso di illustrazione e fumetto in cui uno si laurea alla fine del percorso di studi.
So you have Bologna, who is also the most ancient university in the world and in Europe, even if in France they say that it's Paris, there is this competition, but still, it is not a problem of 1 year to year, that they are both very ancient. And Accademia di Bologna started the very first course, university course in comics, in the end of which you have a real degree of comics, like literature or like this, because before there were, and there are still, courses, but they are not exactly university, It's, something like...
Just out of curiosity, how many students do you usually...
abbiamo 50 studenti all'anno.
Only 50 students can enter into the course.
E 25 studenti che fanno la specialistica.
And 25 have the opportunity of these 50, or anyway 25 also from abroad. Some of them are coming from China also. There is a huge group. 25 can attend the master course.
Interesting. Wow, that sounds really cool. How did you get involved with WEIWEI to start doing this book?
Voi facciamo delle foto?
Sì.
We would like to show you some pictures because
Please,
pictures and
absolutely.
images are for us more important than words. Okay, and so we can start from the beginning. No, vai avanti. Gone. I would like to share this part of. Okay. This is one of the first picture that Gianluca did of AI WEIWEI. It was during the refugees crisis in Greece. He was in Lesbos, and Gianluca is an activist who is working very hard through internet, through Twitter, which is X now, but still. And
We still call it Twitter.
yeah, okay. Okay, and he started drawing AI WEIWEI's activities, and they exchange, links and information and picture, and AI WEIWEI started to share Gianluca's images, not only the one who Gianluca did about him, but in general, his campaign for human rights. So in this way, it was a friendship done through Twitter. And then in reality, when he was opening an exhibition in Florence. So when he was in Florence, he wrote to us and said, well, we could meet in person. What do you think about this? And we say, okay, let's come. Let's go. And we went to Florence. We were quite, thrilled to be invited by a so important artist, contemporary artist. And when we were there, for us, it was just, an exchange of ideas or just, having a coffee together. But in the end of the meeting, she says to us, what would you like to do with me? And we were surprised because we weren't aware that he could be interested in working with us.
Sure.
And so we said that we could do what we can do. That means we could do a book in comics. And she says, oh, well, not bad as idea. It is not bad. I like comics, but I never thought about this. What would you like to tell about me? And I said, I don't know. I would like to say that your biography, the history of your life. But he was at that point already working on his autobiographical book. And he says, well, it is not interesting. Who could be interested in my life? We will think about it. And so everything stopped. After a year, quite a year, Jenny called us, his assistant, and he says, are you coming for instance, in Berlin to see us? I say, okay, we can come. And in Berlin, he says to us that he had a proposal to do a comic book, but he wanted to do it with someone who could trust. That means for him, us.
Yeah.
And he says, okay, send me a proposal, send me an idea of book. And you can see in this image, we did this selfie. This picture is the Berlin studio, AI WEIWEI studio, the entrance. And we are into the studio. And in our back, there is a very famous work of ZODIAC series done by Lego. And when we did the picture, he asked Gianluca, sorry, what's your Chinese sign? And, I don't know in America, but in Italy, nobody asks, what's your sign? Well, you can ask if you want to try to kiss a woman, but not, if you are in a professional meeting. And I understood in that moment, that signs are so important for Chinese people. He was asking us who was our sign because he wanted to trust us, to know something more about us. So when we came back at home, I had this idea to work about Chinese science because it is, let's say, an important theme of the artworks of Ai Weiwei.
Sure.
But it is really important also to enter in a very fair way into Chinese culture, which is so huge, so thick, so heavy, so important, and we are so ignorant. Mm-hmm. We just know nothing about Chinese culture. So what was my real aim was, of course, telling main aspects of Ai Weiwei's life, mm-hmm. but also telling something in some grains of knowledge about Chinese culture and anthropological aspects of this important country.
Yeah, and I think you did a really superb job in it. Is there more that you want to show in the artwork, or should we go back to?
Oh well, this is a picture where we are discussing in Cambridge about the work we were doing together. This was the way we worked together. Mm-hmm. I was writing, and Gianluca was drawing. We can show. He sent us these Chinese comics.
We talked about that yesterday. With
him. Great. And so here you can see, the difference. This is the preparatory work, the draft, and this is the way of the final. Mm-hmm. So in the first phase of the book, I wrote the story and Gianluca did the draft work just to see if the sequence was good, was working.
Sure.
And then Gianluca, of course, started drawing the final version.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. I think you, let's go back to just the two of us, will you? So that I can see a little better here. There you go. I was very impressed with the way that you balanced each chapter, finding a very specific element of both Weiwei's life and of either the political or the cultural life of China itself against each of the zodiac signs. And I wonder on the writing end, how difficult was it for you as an outsider to be able to distill the meaning of the zodiac sign and then matching it to those two disparate elements?
Mm-hmm. When I started writing comics, I decided to give to me a very strict way of working on sceneries. My inspirational, let's say, guru is Italo Calvino, who is an Italian, very important writer, who was very keen on structure of books and how to use, external elements to build up new mythological or fantastic storytellings. This could sound strange because me and Gianluca, we are always working on real stories. But I don't think that nobody can tell the real story of a person, of a life. It's not possible. Every time we are telling a story, we are telling a myth. So we have to use these tools of mythological storytelling to let every reader find a piece of truth for him or for her, something that is connected with his or her soul. So in this book, I decided that there were 12 signs. So every chapter is of 12 pages. Mm-hmm. In 12 pages, there is one political theme, one topic, because this was very important for us and for Ai Weiwei to give also an ethical message. And at the same time, I wanted to have some fiabesque, something that give to the reader the idea of the art mind of a very important contemporary artist.
Yeah.
And all these elements or these gradients are worked in using Aristotle's principle of storytelling, that is, one place, one time, one story. So in reality, the story takes place in very few days, that are the days before Ai Weiwei decides to leave China.
Sure.
Which is, a little bit the before line, the no way line. Mm-hmm. Should I stay or should I go? As they say in the very famous song.
Yep.
So these are the elements that helped me in this magma of important elements.
Yeah. When it came to Weiwei's life, you had him as a primary source. You could, and he was working on his memoir at the same time, I understand, or it already existed. But when it came to the political and social aspects of China itself, how did you know what to pick? I suppose is my question. Did Weiwei suggest elements to you, or was this just studying on your own? Or because you've got 4,000 years of history to potentially look at.
Exactly. You catch the point. Ai Weiwei is an amazing inspirational artist because he is so clever to find a way to inspire you without telling to you what to do. So when we were discussing, special topics of the book, he never gave me the answer. Yeah. Not even one time. He was changing, the topic of the argument I was asking him.
Yep.
And in the beginning, for me, it was a little bit confusing. I was afraid in Gianluca in particular because, drawing is a hard work. And every time she said he was afraid of, if he comes after 40 pages and he says that it is not good, I will suicide, because 40 pages, it is a lot of work. Yeah. But it never happened, to be honest. Just in the end, there were some little correction, he decided to give just to protect some people that are represented into the book. So there are some points where we change some faces, some aspect, but that's all that I can say. Otherwise, Ai Weiwei is, and also I have to add something very important. I read his book, his biographical book, when I finished my work. Mm-hmm. And he never told me the story as he put it in the book. Yeah. So I didn't have this important source, but I think he did it he was very sure of his way, because if I had read his book before, for sure, I couldn't do without it. I mean, it would be a translational work of biographical book into a comics book. And we wanted to avoid this solution, both of us.
Yeah, no, and it very, very much isn't. I mean, I haven't read all of 1,000 Years. I've only read, I think I read the first 2 chapters when I was doing a little research for it. But the structure is completely different. And, you know, again, finding the elements that, you know, a pig has these characteristics, and so this is the story that will fit with the pig part. I just thought it was very skillful and sensitive. I'll say it again. I'm very, very impressed with the script that you were able to provide and to distill his life into 12 segments. It's a very good magic trick. You did a very, very good magic trick, my friend.
Thank you, Brian.
It sounded like, and maybe I'm wrong here, that Gianluca, you were working on the art as she was writing the script?
Tu disegnavi mentre io scrivevo la sceneggiatura?
Yes, sì. Lei lavoravamo per pezzi, man mano che scriveva io disegnavo, ma non c'era un'intera sceneggiatura pronta. Solitamente lavoriamo in questa maniera, andiamo avanti contemporaneamente perché io creo l'immaginario e Elettra poi continua a scrivere quello che avevo disegnato.
It is a way of creation that we normally and we use usually we are doing. We decided to do, and he had a part of the script and his drawing, but at the same time I'm waiting him to finish drawing because I'm starting also from his drawing to continue the script. So it's this process helps us to let the images and the words be more connected.
Absolutely. How many chapters ahead were you in the writing to the art?
Quanti capitoli? No, yes, you are asking to me. Yes.
Well, one. It's fine.
One.
Just one? Oh, just one. Okay.
Just one. Yes.
Yeah,
just
very
one.
Good. I suppose, I guess my question next is, what was your concern? What was your level of concern that you would have to rewrite or revisualize things in that process, right? Because traditionally, when one does fiction, at least, memoir is a little bit different. Real people are a little bit different. But traditionally, when you do fiction, you write the whole script out so that you know that your beginning and your end are going to match up, and that you know. So I guess, how is that different with this memoir? If that makes sense.
Yeah. That's why I need a very hard structure from the beginning.
Yeah.
This is what helps to be sure that all the building will have very strong foundation. Because if you use this process without having a so clear structure, narrative structure, very easily you can lose your path and go somewhere which is nowhere in the end.
Yeah.
And so it's not our first book. We are working together since 2002, and so we weren't really upset with we weren't afraid of losing the narrative, structure. What we were afraid of was not to be able to be kind, to be near Ai WEIWEI's vision. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Betrayal of the main character is what normally in a memoir, in a biographical book, for me is the worst you can do, you know. Until now, we did biographies of dead people. So nobody could come and complain.
Sure.
Gianluca did also Julian Assange biography, who is still alive, and he has a very complicated life at the moment. But it is a book who is telling Julian Assange life before becoming the big enemy of US and being, arrested and so on. But working on people who is still alive, it is not, easy. Yeah. And in particular, if it's a main important artist like Ai Weiwei, and a person that we love also.
Oh, sure.
As a friend, it is also a friend, let's say.
Yeah,
so.
No. I mean, that absolutely comes across in the work. I suppose what my question really was, and this is really more for Gianluca, that you had an outline, right? You had an outline that's chapter 1 is this, chapter 2 is that. I understand that. But when you're drawing the book, and you don't know how it's going to be received, were you afraid as an artist of, I've done 40 pages and then he's going to go, I hate all of this, I have to start over again.
Come potevi comportarti se l'artista rispetto a questo?
Ma la cosa più complicata all'inizio è che non mi era mai successo di dover lavorare, di creare una storia con un artista che ha il suo mondo, la sua visione dell'arte, del disegno e della rappresentazione. Questa era la cosa più difficile all'inizio da affrontare.
Of course, the most difficult aspect was that it was the first time for me, and maybe the first time for comics, that I had to deal with a great artist, with an artist who was giving to me the opportunity to be an artist, but he has his own vision and I have my own vision, and everyone has his way of representing reality as an artist.
E all'inizio Ai Weiwei mi ha dato come esempio un paesaggio di un disegno cinese antico e mi ha chiesto di rifarlo.
In the beginning, we started the first page. The first page of the first chapter starts with a landscape, which is taken from a traditional and very important masterpiece of Chinese art. So Gianluca had to redraw this landscape. It's like redrawing for a Chinese person. It is like redrawing Mona Lisa, just to understand the importance of this landscape. And he had to redraw this apparently very simple landscape. How many times? 10, 15 times. Wow. And every time there was a very, small detail to change, which for us, it means nothing. But for different cultural eyes, it means a lot.
E da quel disegno si è capito, e poi lui me l'ha detto direttamente, che non voleva dei neri nel fumetto, voleva solo la linea e solo l'intreccio delle linee.
And so from that very first drawing, he let Gianluca understand that he didn't want any black part. He wanted just the lines and in a very light way.
E dopo queste prove, quando lui ha detto che andavano bene, non ha mai più detto nulla sul disegno.
After this test, let's call out these very first pages, he never say nothing more about drawings. but just about text. Sequences or,
corretto più il testo che il disegno.
Yes. For him, it was more a matter of the text, of the people that were represented, but not of the style. We find the way to balance the style, and he decided that it was okay.
Yeah. No, that's really fascinating. It's almost like he's setting the rails of a train, and then once the train's moving, then that's fine. You know what you're doing.
Sì, e comunque quando un artista di questo livello ti fa sempre tanti complimenti, poi l'ego esplode, quindi crei sempre di più e lavori sempre di più.
Yes, and when an artist of this level always give you compliments, your ego becomes more big and big and big, and you become very productive. This is the real secret of this relationship.
No, I understand. I'm intrigued that the idea for no to little black ink was WEIWEI's idea rather than yours as the artist, Gianluca. Was that a major change for you, for how you approach a page?
Dice, il fatto di non metterci neri, quindi è stata una scelta che mi sorprende, quindi una scelta di AI WEIWEI, e per te è stata una scelta molto importante che ha cambiato il tuo stile?
Sì, ha cambiato proprio completamente l'immaginario di questo libro.
This choice changed completely the imaginary of this book.
Perché ha aumentato molto di più il dettaglio, la ricerca dei particolari di ogni disegno.
Because in this way I had to look very carefully to be precise in the details of every picture. It is all very, very detailed.
Yeah. I also wonder, because it seems to me that a lot of the way that the eye tracks a comic is in black and in the shapes of the black as much as the line work. Would you agree with that broadly?
I didn't catch the question.
Okay. So when you lay out a page, there's panel to panel transitions, but also the eye takes in the whole page at the same time, right? You don't, when you read a comic, you don't just, I'm looking at panel 1 and only at panel 1. You as a reader, like, you see the whole page as a unit before you start breaking it down. And it strikes me that a lot of the way that the reader decodes a page is through light and darkness on the page.
Quindi dice, praticamente il modo con cui uno decodifica la pagina è una sorta di va sul nero, no? Invece in questo modo è come se tutto fosse una decorazione.
Sì, infatti poi anche non c'è l'interstizio tra le vignette della prima volta che lo facevo.
It was also, in fact, the first time that I decided not to put a space between the single frames.
E questo ha creato come cioè diventa un'unica grande immagine, le immagini si uniscono nei singoli.
And this is a way that helps the idea that it is a pattern. The page is like one page, and yes, you can catch the different frames, but it is one page. There is no space between the first frame and the second frame.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What we would call the gutter.
Okay.
Yeah, the gutter. It's funny because I strongly think that much of the magic of comics, because comics are magic, is in the gutter, is in that blank space where the audience has room to take a breath between the first image and the second image, and then draw the conclusion in their mind between those two things. And not having the gutter has an interesting effect on how you read the work. I don't know that I have the language intellectually to say whether it's better or worse, but there's definitely a different feeling when you don't have that space.
Yes, this is WEIWEI's idea of having I understanding. Am I understanding of having this space between? You have to put your idea of story. Yeah. Quindi lui dice questo buco che c'è narrativo per me è una delle cose più magiche del fumetto. Mettere così vicino le immagini non rende il fatto che il buco un po' scompaia?
Sì, infatti il motivo è dato proprio perché l'interstizio dà il tempo da una vignetta all'altra, che uno decide. Qui obblighi a unire subito lo sguardo alle altre vignette.
Yes, it is a way that I'm trying to ask the reader not to put a blank, not to put a space, not to put a place where you could fill with what you want, but you have to put your eyes and continue the reading of the image in the same space.
Yeah.
So it is something that I decided to do.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's very interesting. I also generally think that the storytelling of comics, panel to panel, is as much about subtraction as it is about addition. In other words, as an artist, you're trying to find sort of the most perfect distillation of a thought or an image before you move on to the next one. Would you broadly agree with that as a statement?
Dice, io penso che il fumetto sia interessante perché è una sorta di distillato, in cui più quello che togli che quello che metti. E quindi tu quando lasci un'immagine passi all'altra, no? Passi da un distillato all'altro. Tu sei d'accordo con questa definizione?
Sì, sono d'accordo, però ogni libro deve avere il suo tempo, come nella musica. E questo libro doveva essere un'immersione nella cultura cinese, nell'immaginario cinese e nella vita di Ai Weiwei. Quindi non volevo, è un po' da dittatore, non volevo guidare l'occhio nella storia.
Yes, I agree with you, but I think also that every book, at least in my creation, every book is different because the story is different, the topic is different, and the mood is different. It is like doing a record. It is like music. You cannot play all the time the same music. The music of this book needed to be a Chinese music somehow, and needed to be something that helped the reader to enter completely into this different culture, this different work, and in particular into Ai Weiwei's mind, which is another universe. Mm-hmm. So I worked like a dictator, trying to find a way to move the reader in this path, in this railway, as you said before.
Yep. No, very, very good, very good. I like that answer a lot. There's a fair number of panels which appear to be actually taken from photographs, like very specifically from photographs. What percentage were you working from a photograph, and what percentage was just from your imagination?
Che percentuale è stata presa da foto, che percentuale è stata presa dalla tua immaginazione? Perché si vede, cioè...
Sì, c'è moltissima foto, perché dovevo ricostruire un mondo che non conosco, quello cinese, e renderlo vero dentro a un libro. Quindi fortunatamente Ai Weiwei ha archiviato tutta la sua vita da quando è ragazzo con la fotografia.
Yes, it is true. And I worked very hard and very extensively with photos, and thank God, Ai Weiwei started to file and to having an archive of images of his life since he was very young. So I had the opportunity to access to this archive. And also I had the access to a big archive of images about China. And I have never been in China. I had to recreate all this part of the world, all this geography. When we was working, we were asking, how is a toilet in China? We just don't know because we have never been in a toilet in China. So there are all these small kind of questions that you ask yourself when you are telling a real story, and you cannot be, you cannot tell lies because everybody could easily understand that it is not true or it is not, quite true.
Sì, comunque quando si ridisegna anche una foto, il disegnatore decide che cosa prendere di quella foto. Quindi quella foto il disegno diventa tutt'altra immagine dalla fotografia che è stato preso.
By the way, we can say that when you redraw a photo, you are creating a new art because you decide what you have to take and what you have to throw away of this picture. So it is something completely different.
Yeah, no, very much so. Was there a challenge in terms of photo reference, particularly for China, not WEIWEI's life, because as you say, he's documented his own life fairly extensively, but for the more mundane parts of China, because China tends to be very, I suppose, private about what it lets out onto the internet. Was it difficult to find sources?
Immagini perché i cinesi non mettono tutto su internet e quindi...
No, sì. La difficoltà maggiore è stato nell'infanzia di Ai Weiwei, in quanto quando era nel deserto, quando parla delle case dove vivevano nelle grotte, nella terra, non esistono foto di quel momento di Ai Weiwei. Quindi non esistono fotografie di questi momenti e quindi lì è stata molto difficile la ricostruzione. Poi invece quando si va nell'odierno anche i cinesi mettono tutto là, è anche troppo.
It was difficult to draw the first part of Ai Weiwei's life because during Cultural Revolution, of course, there are not so many pictures. Also about US, but in particular, there is no pictures of the desert and of the places where he lived during the exile of his father and of his family. So the reconstruction of that part of his life was very hard, very difficult for both of us. I read a lot of novels, of Chinese novels, and I tried to figure out from the description in words what they were describing, because there is a literature now of post-traumatic generation that is telling somehow the story of the people that had this experience. We found some pictures, but that part is hard. Now it is not the same because Chinese people is like us. They are putting all their lives into the internet and more of what you are expecting.
Yeah. Yeah. I was wondering it in terms of potential censorship and things like that, because as you say, yes, obviously people put their lives on the internet, but so many things seem like they're censored by the government before they make it to the internet, or they're removed once they make it onto the internet.
Sì, perché lui pensava soprattutto alla censura, se c'erano momenti, però la storia di Ai Weiwei, poi potremmo dire qualcosa su Xi Jinping che stai facendo adesso.
Sì, sì, va bene.
No, well, for this book, we hadn't this problem because there are no part connected to this aspect.
Sure.
And in the same time, Ai Weiwei's blog were censored, but we have the blog of Ai Weiwei in a book. So we have some part of the words. We have, of course, images of him being involved in his activities for human rights. So
Sure.
it wasn't difficult. Now Gianluca is working in a new book about Xi Jinping with a French journalist. For this book, there is the problem that you are mentioning. Because, of course, when you are following up life of political men in China, there is always somebody who is missing from a photo, and you don't know why.
Right. Yeah, no, that seems like it could be very complex. Let me ask you, Elettra, about some of the dialogue, right? Because you have his memoirs that tell you the sort of the factual things that happened, but in a conversation with, let's say, with him and his son Lau, how did you get the voices for that conversation? Because obviously you weren't in the room, and I don't believe that he had written down word for, I said this and then he said that, and
this is completely fictional.
Okay.
It is fiction, but in the same time, to give I was not interested in, a normal dialogue between a father and a son. It is a mythical dialogue between a great artist and his son, who is the grandson of a great poet. So what they are saying is a mix of my imagination and also of things that Ai Weiwei told in interviews, and I wanted him to present these statements as phrases given to his son. So there are parts that are real. He really told these words, Ai Weiwei, but of course not to his son. Maybe, I don't know. I don't think so. Also because I know that Ai Lau doesn't love the public image of his father, which is something that you can understand because affected his whole life.
Sure.
And but in the idea of a father of the son and a son, it is very helpful in Ai Weiwei's story because he is the son of one of the biggest poets of China. So it's like an ancient Greek tragedy. The father to the son, and then the son became a father. So it's something very connected with the traditional storytelling.
Yeah, I thought that Lau came off especially good in the text. I thought he seemed so insightful. So that's great. Were there any? So Weiwei made some comments about the art. Did he ever make any comments about those kind of personal conversations between him and his son, between him and his mother, between him and his brother, those kinds of things? Was there any editing at that part?
Yes, he did some editing about some parts. Not in his. It is interesting, this question that you are asking, because thinking about this, he was more concerned about situations that were quite public. Not. It seems in the end to me that the personal dialogues for him worked. He never asked me to change the dialogue with his mother or the dialogue with his son. Never. But he asked me to change some small parts that were, for example, the dialogue with the journalist that is going to his house, having an interview with him. This was more for him, concerning somehow.
Yeah. No, I can understand that, I think. As a technical question, did you write the script in English or did you write the script in Italian?
No, I wrote it in English. which is not my first language, is my third language, and then was never studying English. I learned by myself. But it helped me because English is more simple than Italian and Greek. As a structure, is very synthetical. In Italian, we are Baroque. In Greek, we are prosastic. In English, you are good for comics because you can. And at the same time, helped me to be more close to the way, at least what I can understand, the way of writing Chinese poetry, which apparently is very simple. So I was, in this way, I couldn't be Baroque. I couldn't be use too many adjectives, I had to stay in very simple phrases because it is not my language. Yeah. So I was thinking about writing it in Italian or in Greek, I don't know. But in the end, it was very more useful, more effective writing it in English.
And was there any outside editorial reading of what you were writing other than WEIWEI? In other words, was your publisher reading the script and going, yeah, no, you don't want to say the word that way, that you actually got the idiom completely wrong?
I don't know. I mean, we had a direct relationship with Ai WEIWEI. Some of his assistant was helping us, giving us information, sending us photos, or, they were very helpful in all this process. But at the same time, the final reading was done by the publisher, by Random House. But I don't know, we don't know nothing about this. So I cannot say. And to be honest, it is not my problem. I was not able until now to read it again. So when I will read it, the final edition, I will tell you the truth, because now I don't know.
Well, I find it interesting, particularly because there's points where you're talking about a Chinese idiom, they'll use the language, but you're describing it in English, but you speak Italian. So that's an interesting little trick to make work. I like it quite a bit. Let's talk just a couple more things about craft. When you're writing the script, are you writing it as like a screenplay, or are you writing it as sort of what we would call Marvel style in America, where it's, okay, on this page, these 4 things happen? Or are you going, page 1, panel 1, here's what it is, here's the dialogue?
He is a dictator, but I'm too. Mm-hmm. So I decide what happened in every panel. Mm-hmm. And I'm writing the dialogue, and then I'm also writing things that you cannot see, but they are giving you the mood. Yeah. He is very thirsty, and he had a very bad day yesterday. So I need him to be very, very angry with his son. And now you cannot see this, but this helped Gianluca to choose the exact way to draw Ai WEIWEI, his son, or what else. Yeah.
And Gianluca, the script is in English. So how does that
work? Intanto la mia relazione con Ai WEIWEI è nata con un inglese di Google Translate.
Firstly, my relationship with Ai WEIWEI started with Google Translate help in Twitter.
E lavoro tutti i giorni con persone che parlano solo inglese.
And I'm working every day with people that are English speakers.
Understood.
It is strange, but artificial intelligence is helpful in the end.
Yeah. It's not always right, though, is the only problem. That's why it's artificial. Elettra, how long roughly did it take you to complete the script?
We worked really on the book during the pandemic. We started in 2020 and in the end of 2019, but honestly, and we ended in 2021. 21.
Abbiamo finito?
Sì, 22, yes, 2 years.
So for the full book, it took 2 years.
Yeah.
How just doing the script though? How long?
Well, it is going. As well as I told you, it is not. We are not working on the script and then on the drawings. So. I finished a little bit earlier than him, but not so earlier.
Okay. So it took you most of those 2 years to write the script yourself.
Yeah.
And you used, I'm sure as the artist, Gianluca, you used every day of those 2 years. How many pages a day do you typically draw?
Quante pagine facevi al giorno?
0. Una pagina ogni 3 giorni.
3 days for a page.
Okay. How much of that work in building a page is the thumbnails and the pre-visualization versus the actual execution of the final work?
Questo è interessante. Cioè, quanto tempo ci vuole per fare la previsualizzazione e quanto ci vuole per fare il lavoro vero e proprio?
La ricerca o lo storyboard?
Non so.
No, in questo tipo di libri la cosa più lunga e complicata è, per una mia ossessione personale, è che tutto quello che disegno deve essere più possibilmente vero di quei luoghi. Non so, se disegno una strada in Cina deve essere proprio quella strada con tutte le cose che ci devono essere.
What takes me a lot of time in this kind of books and of comics is that I'm obsessed by the research part. So if I'm drawing a street in China, I want that the reader could be able to understand which street I'm drawing. So the details and the research of the details are very important to me.
E per esempio la ricerca anche fotografica diventa talmente ossessiva che non bastava più la vita di Ai Weiwei, ma andavo a vedere tutti i profili degli amici, delle parenti, di qualsiasi persona conosce Ai Weiwei. È uno stalker per trovare sempre qualcosa di più che desse proprio l'intimità della sua vita.
So for me, I was so obsessed by these aspects that I was looking through profiles of Ai Weiwei's life, Ai Weiwei's parents, Ai Weiwei's relatives, looking, every picture they were posting like a stalker, because I wanted to enter in his intimacy.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. When you were working a chapter at a time, if I was understanding that correctly, did you thumbnail out the whole chapter before you started doing finished drawings, or did you work in a kind of a hybrid fashion? This is what I'm going to draw tomorrow, or the next week I'm going to draw this page, thumbnail, execution.
Facevi praticamente lo storyboard di ogni pagina, del capitolo. He was doing the storyboard of the chapter before, and then the final drawing.
So you basically broke it into 12 chunks, yes? That you did chapter 1.
12 pezzi, 12, sì.
Sì.
I assume, I could be wrong, I assume that's probably not how you normally would approach a graphic novel?
Penso che non sia la cosa normale che fai quando fai una graphic novel.
No, è una cosa normale.
No, it is normal to him.
Oh, really? So small chunks. You do your thumbnails in a small chunk, then you draw. Interesting. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Because typically in America, most creators that I talk to say that they will thumbnail the entire book, all 100, 200 pages of it in thumbnails before they even starting the pencil.
Yes, also in Italy it's like this.
Yeah.
It is. But we are, as I told you, I'm lazy, and if he has to wait for me, he can die. I mean, you cannot wait for me to end. But also, honestly speaking, this helps to have more ideas, because helps me to be inspired by his drawing and by the solution that he's giving to me. And at the same time, he is always, what is going next? What is happening? He never knows how the story is finishing.
Right. Right.
There is no spoiler part, of this.
Yeah.
Not even for him.
Yeah. Gianluca, how do you work? Physical, pen and paper, or do you do digital?
No, questo libro è fatto in digitale.
This book is completely done on iPad.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay.
E ogni vignetta è grandissima nel digitale.
And every frame, every panel is very big in the original digital version.
Big, like how big? Like 4 or 5 times the size, or?
Come se fosse una pagina ogni vignetta.
It is big like a page, like this. A4,
Okay.
Mm.
Okay. Wow. Is that, well, I guess the question then is, because you're working digitally, do you have separate stages for what we would consider penciling and then inking? Or do you just do a final illustration?
Se fai prima la matita poi la china, o fai livelli, come lavori?
Lavoro con i livelli, ma non faccio la matita. But
He works with phases, with levels, but not with pencil, directly with the ink.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I would think, especially with this book, there's not a lot of ink anyway, so there's not that step as much. How about the lettering? Did you guys letter it? Was it someone else who lettered it?
L'hanno letterato Alse. He did the lettering.
Yes.
Very nice.
Il lettering è fatto dalla mia scrittura, poi io ho fatto l'ho impaginato.
He has a special lettering done with by hand, and then he did a digital version of this lettering.
So it's a font then.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's your handwriting, the font?
Quindi il font è proprio la tua scrittura. Yes, it is.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice. Yeah, no, the effect of it is very, very strong. Well, fantastic. As I said, I really liked this book a lot. I can't say it enough how much of a piece of craft I thought this was, and that I was very genuinely excited. Because a lot of times you read memoirs and they're, well, I mean, dashed off is the wrong word, but sometimes they're done very quickly, very haphazardly. But the level of detail and attention to the work, I think, is something you should be very proud of.
Dice, dovete essere molto orgogliosi del lavoro dettagliato. Brian, may I ask you which is your sign?
I was born in 1967, so that's all I can tell you. I've never.
Oh, you don't know your Chinese sign.
No. Because I'm an American, right? We the only thing even if we think about signs at all, it's the Greco-Roman. It's the monthly signs. I'm a Gemini. I can tell you that. I'm a sheep or a goat. Well, which one?
It depends on one of the month.
It's June. It's June. So yeah, probably the goat then. Yeah, it actually makes a lot of sense. I am kind of a goat. So and you two, what signs are you?
I'm the same sign of AI WEIWEI.
Okay.
So I'm a roaster.
Yeah.
And Gianluca is a pig, which is in English and also in Italian, it is not kind to say to a person, you are a pig.
You are a pig, yes.
But in China, it is considered a very good sign.
Right. That you're very loyal, that you're very dependable. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things I liked the most about this book. And it's one of the things I like about comics in general, nonfiction comics in general, is that it can really show you a world that you hadn't seen. You know, I think about a really obvious examples like Meows or Persepolis, that there's no other way that I would have read that story and felt those emotions as much. And it very much comes across in here. You again, you guys did a fantastic job of this. Is there anything else that you guys know of your work that will be coming out in America anytime soon? In other words, is there anything you would like to plug that might be coming up?
I think that Gianluca's book about Xi Jinping, which will come out in France in October, will be for sure, I suppose, being translated in English. So I think that it will come also in US.
Yeah, it's such a small percentage of European comics that get translated, and I would say if this is how many European comics are translated, most of those are French. Like the number of Italian comics are probably more like that. You know. Yeah. I run a store. We have a full range of things, but I'm not positive that I could name many more Italian artists than say Milo Manara. You know, after that, it's like, well, who? Yeah, so very, very little actually does get translated and brought over.
You have to know that we are colonizing France. Mm-hmm. So very soon we will come also in US. Don't worry.
Nice. Okay, and then my last question. I just like my first question. I asked the same last question of everybody. This is a series of interviews where we've done, 10 years worth, so almost 240 interviews of various people who do comics and comics work. And so I get a lot of people who watch these who want to make comics themselves, but who aren't confident in their ability, who aren't sure if they are talented enough or if they have anything worthy to say. So for both of you, what would be the piece of advice that you might give a young person who is interested in pursuing the arts and particularly comics, but is not sure about what to do? And this can be something practical. This can be something physical. This can be something spiritual. This can be something emotional. However you'd like to answer it.
Ma io ai miei studenti tutti i giorni cerco di insegnare a raccontare le storie, qualsiasi siano. Poi però più si diventa grandi, bisogna puntare un obiettivo su quello che proprio si conosce, su quello che si vuole raccontare ed entrare dentro quel mondo.
I always try to teach, to invite my students to draw real stories, to find stories that are inspiring them and starting from the real ones. And at the same time, I'm saying to them, start with what you know better.
E soprattutto quello che devono amare il disegno
And they have to love drawing.
in tutte le sue tutti i suoi modi di essere, non solo nel fumetto, quindi disegnare sempre, amare proprio rappresentare la realtà nel disegno.
And they have to love drawing in every situation, in every condition, and never stop drawing. I have no advice. The only advice that I have to say is that please read some comics before writing one.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Well, I really want to thank both of you for taking the time and talking to me about the making of this book. I very, very much appreciate your perspective, and because my conversation with WEIWEI was very sort of intellectual and not about craft, right? He in fact denied to me that he was an artist at all. Which I thought was utterly fascinating. So to be able to talk to you as artists, I very much appreciate you taking the time from your days and doing this.
It was our pleasure, Brian, and we are going to come, I hope, very soon to your bookstores, because we were surprised in New York that there are no bookstores anymore.
Yeah.
This is so, sad for me.
Well, it's difficult to run a bookstore in America these days. I mean, not only is everybody looking at these all day long, right? But it's hard to run a small business, and unlike at least parts of Europe, the government doesn't subsidize bookstores at all. I know that, for example, in France, that all the bande dessinée stores are at least partially paid for by the government. But no, not here in America. Like it's sink or swim. When I opened my store, I've been here, I'm just about to celebrate my 35th anniversary. And when I opened my store in 1989, there were 27 comic book stores in San Francisco. Now there are 8. So yeah, no, I mean, yeah, it's a big change. I would love, and if you do come, please let me know ahead of time, because I would love to take you out, and you have to see our bathroom. Our bathroom is filled with drawings from all the creators from all over the world who have come to our store over the years. So yeah, absolutely let me know when you do that.
We have an appointment, Brian. We will see you for sure. Thank you.
Excellent. I love that. Again, one more time, thank you for this book. It was a very special book. It was a very immaculately crafted book, and I really value craft in a pretty exceptional way. So great job on both of you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you very much.
I want to thank a couple people that we couldn't do the show without. I especially want to thank Jordan, our producer, who does all the backstage stuff that none of you will ever see. I want to thank Ben for shooting the show. I want to thank my staff, Zoe, Kat, and Katie, and Max as well, because they allow me to sit here and talk to creators and have a good time and do this that I wouldn't be able to do. I want to thank all the members of the club. We literally couldn't do this without you. It's your support that allows these things to happen. And I want to thank, more than anything else, I want to thank the artists and the writers who make great comics like ZODIAC. I want to thank AI WEIWEI. I want to thank the Italians, Gianluca and ELETTRA. They just did a fabulous job. And if you're sitting at home and you haven't read this yet, absolutely get it. There'll be a little URL down at the bottom of the screen. You'll be able to buy this book with the signed book plate by WEIWEI. I also want to let you know of the next couple of shows that we have coming up. The next thing that we'll show will be a kids club, and the book will be Beowulf, which is by Mike Caballero. That's coming next. And then immediately after that, our next adult graphic novel will be Bunt, by Ngozi Ukazu and Mad Rupert. This is a really fun book, and you guys are going to like that. We do these shows every single month. There's another one coming up, so like and subscribe and do that thing, and we'll see you next time.